Yeah. That's what we have.
All right, Bruce, I think we'll go ahead and get started.
All right.
This is Leslie Johnstone, and I'd like to call the meeting of the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange Board together. We'll start with item number 1, which includes welcome, roll call, and announcements. Bruce, if I could get you to do the roll call.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Johnstone.
Present.
Okay. Ms. Lewis.
Present.
Dr. Jameson.
Present.
Ms. Wilson. Dr. Grinstein. And Ms. Clark.
Present.
Now the ex officio members, Ms. Ayello. Okay, and on behalf of Acting Commissioner Parks, Mr. King. Very good. And on behalf of Mr. Wells, Janet Murphy.
Present.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and thank you to the new members. I wonder if Ms. Clark would like to say a few words about herself, and hopefully one day we will all get to meet you in person.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam President. I'd be happy to. My name is Valerie Clark. I was just appointed by the governor to this board chair, I believe, just about a month ago. I'm the person that has insurance experience, and I've been in the business 23 years. I own an independent insurance agency in Reno called Clark & Associates, and have been doing life and health insurances, employee benefits, for the past 23 years. Prior to that, my background is in nursing. I was a public health nurse for 10 years. And so I do have a lot of healthcare background as well. I'm very happy to be serving this board and looking forward to helping in any way I can.
Thank you very much. Very nice to meet you. Mr. Gilbert, do we have any announcements?
We do not.
Okay. Then at this point, I would open it up to public comments. We can start here in Henderson.
I missed the big microphones. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Barry Gold. I'm the Director of Government Relations for AARP Nevada. It is good to be back at a HealthLink board meeting to talk about a lot of different things and hear what's going on. The thing that I want to comment on is the introduction of the new marketing agency, and I was looking through their marketing plan, and I'm looking at the primary targets, and I understand the need to look at the invincibles and the single moms and the minority populations. But once again, the 50 to 64-year-olds seem to be neglected. I know that the first year of enrollment, they were the largest percentage of enrollees through Nevada HealthLink. I don't know what last year's numbers were, and it may be that the marketing firm or whomever thinks that that population is like shooting fish in a barrel and we don't have to reach out to them. But I think that's a mistake. I think whatever numbers you did get, how much bigger could it have been if you had reached out to them? 50 to 64-year-olds are the ones that definitely need insurance as much or more than anybody else. Some of them have chronic conditions, cannot afford insurance. The job market has gotten better, but still isn't better. So I'm disappointed again to see that they seem to be left out. I know that, it's catch as catch can with the community events in terms of going to senior events. Once again, last year, I think they attended some. They were HealthLink was conspicuously absent at a few others. So I think that's always a good way to go out and talk to the seniors that are there. I understand there's an issue with, you have the 50 to 64s and the 65 plus that really don't belong in Nevada HealthLink, but that 50 to 64 is a really reachable market, really understand the value of insurance. And I guess the way to put it is a little marketing will go a long ways to helping them and getting them to sign up. When I go out, I talk to those people and they're really interested. And the other thing is there's other events that are more primarily 65 plus who AARP talks to, and they talk about their children, and their children need insurance, and how can their children get insurance who are in that 50 to 64-year-olds. So I just would like to make sure that they're included in whatever marketing plans you have. I looked at the sample materials and I see new moms with babies and I see kids falling off of skateboards, but I don't see anybody over the age of 35 years old. And I think I think there's something missing there. I think there's a whole population that should be addressed. And that's my public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Any other public comment in Henderson? Hearing none, do we have any public comment in Carson City?
I see none, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That takes us to approval of the minutes of the July 11th board meeting.
Madam Chair, is a motion in order?
A motion would be in order.
I move approval of the June 11th minutes.
Thank you. Second that motion. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Minutes are approved.
For the record, I'm abstaining because I wasn't here.
Thank you. The next item is election of the vice chair per statute. And unless the executive director has anything to offer, I'll take nominations for.
Wow, terrible acoustics. As the chair knows, I'm pointing at my AV guy back here and giving him crap, just so you know. As the chair knows, when it became obvious that we would have to fill the vice chair position by statute, I did reach out to the various members and ask for expressions of interest. And Dr. Jameson, to her credit, did step forward and indicate that she would not be adverse to serving. I did not receive anything from any other member, so I did want to bring that to your attention.
Call that. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. I want to just offer, if anybody's had a change of heart, make sure that we do this in an open, transparent fashion. So any other nominations or any nominations at all, I would like to do this in the form of a motion for the nomination.
Madam Chair, I move for the nomination of Dr. Leslie Johnstone. I'm sorry. I'm getting that all. Dr. Florence Jameson for vice chair.
Thank you. With that, we can, I think, just call for a vote of the board. All those in favor of Dr. Jameson serving as our vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations. I was being so appropriate and got your name on wrong.
Good. All right. Appreciate that. The next item is number 5, which is the executive director's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wow. It's not me, is it? Oh, I think we, no, we're still in bad shape. All right, let's try this. Can you, hey, Ian, come on now. All right. You know, I was thinking the other day, it's almost a year to the day since I first appeared before the board as executive director. My first board meeting was actually August 14th last year, and a lot of things have changed over the course of the year. We had a successful movement onto the healthcare.gov platform. We were able to double our enrollment. We now have, I think, a really good call center that is certainly serving us better than we had when I came aboard. I think we've made really tremendous and great strides. And, you know, I wanted to take a moment and thank the board for having the faith to allow me to come here and not mess up things any more than I actually did. I feel really good about where we are. I think we still have challenges, but overall, I think we're in a really good place. I'd also like to sort of segue off of my written remarks and say that I appreciate Mr. Gold's comments earlier today in the course of public comment. We try very hard to be inclusive, but it's also true that at times our targeting is driven by a number of considerations, and it is possible for us to not pay as much attention to some groups as we should. I very much appreciate his remarks. I appreciate his bringing that to our attention, and it's certainly something that we will talk about with our marketing firm on a going forward basis. That being said, let's turn to my report. As I indicate in my report, we've been pretty busy this summer. There are a lot of projects which are on our plate that we're moving through, and you'll hear more about some of those today. The first and perhaps the most important is a sustainability discussion, which we continue to have with our federal partners at CMS and SSHIX. We did attend a 2-day workshop for building toward state-based marketplaces, financial stability or sustainability. And all that really means is we all got together in a couple of different rooms in McLean, Virginia, to talk about issues that affected, to some degree, all of us when it comes to state-based marketplaces, including targeting and demographics and things like that, so that we were looking at the marketing and revenue side, but also specifically with respect to us and to Oregon and New Mexico and potentially Hawaii, at what the cost will be attended to remaining on the federal eligibility and enrollment platform. I'd like to be able to tell you that we've arrived at a number, that we're happy, that they're happy, and everything is wonderful. I can't do that. They have not provided us with guidance to this point in time as to what that ultimate number may be. I know that we have exchanged some ideas back and forth. I don't know that we'll know before November when they do some rulemaking and it comes out. So at this point in time, we'll continue to have discussions and try and figure out where we're going to end up on that. On July 15th, we did host a supported state-based marketplace collaborative at the Henderson office to talk about sustainability as well as to discuss best practices and lessons learned. We did have representation from New Mexico and Oregon and Hawaii, as well as some guests. And our expectation is that we will continue to have those meetings on a going forward basis and share our experiences and see if it's not possible for us to help one another. Also, as you will hear, we have received and accepted the 2014 plan year data from Xerox. That data has been transferred to our office and uploaded on a server, and Natoma created some applications that allow us to go in and reconstruct data for general research and reporting and for IRS 1095A form corrections and reporting. We're not in a position where we can say that data is accurate, nor can we say that it is complete. I think those questions will linger. Nonetheless, we've taken ownership of the data such as it is. We've determined that we can reconstruct the data for the purposes that we need, and we've begun providing direct access and assistance to consumers in the Division of Insurance with respect to that data. We've also begun working more closely with Nevada's agent and broker communities in preparation for the upcoming open enrollment period. We've had a series of meetings, the most recent of which occurred this week, actually, a couple of days ago. And we have met with the leadership of all 3 of the industry's professional associations to talk about how we can work together and co-brand enrollment events, which will allow us to expand the scope of our in-person assistance throughout the state and offer assistance in multiple locations, and will also, we believe, help us to better identify and enroll our underserved populations. Finally, it says here we will be, but we in fact have advised the Internal Revenue Service that we're in receipt of our 2014 plan year data, and that we've provided appropriate safeguards for the associated federal tax information. Any issues regarding retention and purging of federal tax information by our former vendor will now be handled directly between Xerox and the Internal Revenue Service. I'm sure that we'll have more to share about many of these matters over the coming months. In the meantime, we're just going to continue to slog forward, and I do feel that we're really very well positioned and should be able to meet the needs of and provide real value to Nevada and its citizens. And that would be the sum and substance of my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Any questions from the board members? All right, let's take up item number 6, which is the exchange to sustainability.
Yes, and I'll be giving that report. As I indicated in the course of my executive director report, the staff did travel down to McLean, Virginia, specifically to talk with CMS and CSIO about the issue of sustainability, and within that, specifically with regard to whatever fee might be levied for continued access to the healthcare.gov eligibility and enrollment platform. We had been told when we met with them back in May that we could expect some additional information to be forthcoming, which would allow us to plan and determine how we would deal with whatever that cost would be. That has not happened to this point in time. There will be some rulemaking that comes out in November, and I don't think we'll see anything before that. We did have what I would call frank discussions with CMS leadership at the highest levels about our concerns, given the size of our market and the strictures on our revenue generation being limited to a user fee, essentially, assessed against the carriers. That's not the case, for example, in New Mexico, which has a market-wide assessment, nor is it the case in some other states. So it was very important from my perspective to make sure that they understood our situation. And Oregon's is similar to ours. Hawaii finds itself in a very unusual position. They only have about 8,000 or 10,000 people which they've signed up. So I think there's a very real question as to the sustainability of their exchange under any circumstances. But certainly with respect to us in New Mexico and Oregon, we took some time really to make sure that they understood our various situations. We have not been provided with actual dollar figures or cost methodology. They're still trying to figure out where they're coming out on that. Our hope was that by going to the sustainability conference, we would be in a position to report specifics to you at this point in time. We cannot. I am constrained to some degree because as we went through the conference and we all met, there was a constant reminder that the information that was being shared was confidential and not for public consumption. And so I'm honoring that request to this point in time. I think we're really going to have to wait until November in the rulemaking. In the meantime, there will be ongoing discussions, and I think we're just going to have to wait and see where we go from here.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Gilbert? Bruce, were these sessions only with the state-supported exchanges?
No, these were all state-based marketplaces. So California was there, New York was there, and there were a number of states that were partnership states, like Delaware and I think Pennsylvania falls into that as well. But they were representatives sort of from a spectrum of states. The only hybrid states, of course, are the ones that, like us, Oregon, New Mexico, and Hawaii. It was interesting, though, because the session on the cost of accessing the federal platform was attended by more than just us. I think that there's fairly widespread interest, but I don't think anything was resolved in the course of that meeting.
Thank you. I was going through the thought process that our situation is relatively unique, and I was surprised to hear that there were other states there that were fully state-operated exchanges.
I think there have been a lot of reports in the media that even those states that are freestanding state-based marketplaces struggle to some degree with the cost of technology and the continuing expenses involved in having your own technology platform and and staffing a call center, a fully operational call center. Most states are like us. They're not like a California or a New York. If you take a look at a state like Rhode Island or Massachusetts, they're much more like us in terms of population and the ability to generate the revenue necessary to sustain an exchange than a California or New York. So I think there's fairly widespread interest.
Okay, thank you. The next item is an update on the Consumer Assistance Center.
For the record, Laura Rich, Project Management Officer. I'll be giving the update on the Consumer Assistance Center. As Bruce mentioned, the Exchange successfully implemented a Consumer Assistance Center. Once we moved away from Xerox, I believe that the call center staff, they've done an excellent job of picking up where Xerox left off. And they've been able to help consumers not only with 2014 issues, but with 2015 issues arising from anything dealing with carriers to dealing with healthcare.gov and, of course, previous Xerox issues. So this will be a really short report. I'm just going to go over the metrics and discuss a little bit of the issues. As you see, the call volume did drop from the last update that I provided. We are averaging about 113 calls a day, and our average hold time is under half a minute, 28 seconds. So we're looking pretty good there. We are able to assist consumers pretty quickly and pretty effectively. The calls that are coming in are broken up into, as you can see, about 45% of them are healthcare.gov calls. These are not calls that we just hand off to healthcare.gov. These are calls that come in and our staff at the Consumer Assistance Center does do usually a three-way call with the consumer and advocate on their behalf. So it's another layer of advocacy for our consumers, which sometimes is needed because healthcare.gov, because we're in a unique situation, they don't always have the right answers. The next category would be Medicaid and CHIP calls. We get a lot of those. Unfortunately, a lot of our consumers just don't know where to call. So they're calling our call center. Our staff are redirecting those people to the Medicaid call center. And sometimes they need a little bit of hand-holding. So usually we don't stay on the line beyond the point where we get them through the prompts, but we at least walk them through that. I also have, there's 2014 issues that are still existing. There's two categories of 2014 issues, and I'll go into that in a minute, but there's 2014 1095, so tax concerns, tax calls that are still coming in, and 2014 just residual Xerox-related issues. So that being said, unfortunately, some of the consumer resolution related to 2014 plans managed by Xerox continue to be a priority of the Exchange. And as you can see on Table 2, approximately 10% of those calls are related to 2014 issues in terms of tax documents, refunds, and other coverage date complications. The Division of Insurance, with the assistance and support from the Exchange, has absorbed many of the complaints associated with the QHP coverage or any financial matters. And all of those consumers have been contacted by the consumer assistance staff and redirected over to the Division of Insurance to file complaints through that division. The Exchange and the DOI meet regularly to discuss and move forward toward a final resolution for outstanding consumer complaints. 1095As continue to also be a priority of the Exchange. We're working through the 2014 backlog of 25A corrections. We did receive the data from Xerox that occurred in early July, and at that point, we began processing approximately 130 known corrections that these were callers that had identified themselves as either needing reprints or corrections of some sort. And the staff has been working really diligently on that. We expect all corrections to be complete by the end of August. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Rich?
I just have a very quick question. What is your staff size right now in order to take care of the issues that you're dealing with? What size group of people is doing that?
Are you referring to the call center?
Yeah, your call center.
Okay, the call center, Right now, we were staffed up to 6, and then with a drop in call volume, we are down to actually 4. And we will ramp up during open enrollment. But right now, obviously our 30-second hold time seems to be appropriate with 4 staff.
Great. And that's here in northern Nevada? Or is there people in southern Nevada?
No, it's actually right next door.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And Ms. Rich, could you remind us when the call center began? Wasn't it early June? Or?
No, actually, Xerox, their last day, I believe, was April 15th, and we began operations of our call center, Consumer Assistance Center, on April 16th. So there was no gap.
Okay. I wonder if we could provide a little bit of longitudinal information on the call center metrics for future reports, month by month, so that we can see kind of the trend on the calls received and the average hold time, and maybe even add the drop calls if there are any, and the average time on the phone with someone, just so we can get a sense for the complexity of the issues that you're dealing with.
We can definitely provide that.
And then I'm not sure how to display it, but the information that's on table 2 is very helpful. I'd be curious to see that in some kind of a longitudinal view as well, so that we could see the trending on the types of issues you're having to deal with.
It's such a great idea, and I love the way like Nevada Energy and Power do it, where they show you, and then on the bar one, so the graphics is such a good idea, but I think that bar one would lend to it really beautifully.
Madam Chair, I have another question.
Yes.
Is it possible to give some detail in terms of what types of issues people are calling in for? I mean, to maybe categorize them, what issues get resolved, what issues remain unresolved? Is that asking too much to try and get a feel for what the angst is when people are calling in? What is the reason? Are we able to resolve their issues?
We do have a method to actually our call center, when they receive a call, they can either close the case as resolved or keep it open. Unfortunately, with healthcare.gov, sometimes we are out of the loop. If there's ever a situation where we can be their advocate during that phone call, but if there's follow-up that's necessary beyond that, if that consumer does not involve our Consumer Assistance Center and they call healthcare.gov directly, we're kind of out of that loop. And so we can provide that, but I don't know how accurate it would be.
Got it. Okay. I guess my feeling would be that we're just wanting the security of knowing that you're as effective as you possibly can be, and that if people question you, you're able to show that. But I hear what you're saying.
and I agree. And to a point, we can look at those case notes too and see that, our role is to advocate and to make sure that our consumers get the level of attention that they need. And, for example, when we have our staff call with a consumer to the carrier, sometimes it involves a carrier, the consumer, and healthcare.gov. And, sometimes it's even a 4-way conversation. And so there's multiple levels there. And I think that the case notes can actually, and we do actually go through and spot check some of those. So we're able to see that advocacy is playing a role there.
Do you generally get calls back if they don't get resolution? Like if you get out of the loop, is there a way that you'll find out that, hey, I'm not happy after all, they call you back and let you know? Or
Definitely,
okay.
Yes.
I would assume so, but I didn't know if there was a mechanism for tracking that.
We do, and there's we can label it as a complaint. The complaints, I don't even know if they were on here. I think it was, there may have been one complaint. So,
okay.
It didn't even register on here.
Got it. Thanks.
For the record, Damon Haycock, I want to add just a little bit about the system that we're using, a customer relations management tool. It's very robust. It's littered with labels that we can create on the fly. And so what you see here, and when we developed this report, we didn't want to show 500 different types of pie pieces to make it more confusing. So I believe we took the top 10, but we can drill down into the weeds and see exactly what are the issues and how we label those. So we can pull even more robust reports, and our general reports usually are much larger, but we didn't want to make things any more confusing and give a first overview to test with the board to see what you guys really wanted to see. And so we can continue to delve even deeper into those 2014 issues. We don't just label them as 2014 issues. We really get into it if it's effective dates of coverage, if it's potential refunds, if it's complaints against the system, whatever the scenario is, we're able to completely label it and then pull it up and pull direct reports to come up with those totals at any given time.
Thank you, Mr. Haycock. As one board member, I'm fine with you staying with the top 10 reasons if that's where the cutoff was. I would just, as I said, be more interested in seeing the longitudinal trends.
And I think, Madam Chair, we can do that now that the system has been tested and vetted. You can see from month to month, this one's showing, of course, July, and we'll be able to replicate that and show August, September, October as we move forward.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, then we will move on to item 8, which is the introduction of Pena Powers and as a marketing approach.
For the record, Janelle Davis, Communications Officer at the Exchange. The Exchange entered into a contract with the marketing firm Pena Powers on May 12, 2015, in order to provide marketing and outreach education to individuals, families, small businesses in the state of Nevada. The maximum amount of the contract for the term of the contract is $4 million over a 2-year term. The marketing campaign encompasses 3 phases: planning, pre-enrollment, and the open enrollment campaign. We had a kickoff meeting which was held on May 14th, 2015 with Pena Powers in our Carson City office to discuss the unique environment and background of the Exchange, as well as set expectations for planning and implementation efforts. The firm has hired a Nevada account manager in Las Vegas to oversee all the marketing and outreach efforts. A comprehensive marketing plan has been developed and the pre-enrollment phase has begun. And attached, you will find a report detailing that plan and upcoming activities, which is attachment A in the report. And I think they just joined us at the table here. I'd like to introduce our Nevada account manager, Patty Albeck. Chris Menji, she's our Salt Lake City account manager. They flew up from Utah. Nick Wistino, who is the social media manager. And then I'd also like to introduce Andres from the Ramirez group and Janet, who he brought with him as well. And they do our outreach and education portion for the marketing.
Yes, I did.
Bear with us, we're just trying to mirror it to get it to be up on the screen.
It's
It's showing mirroring options. It's
mirrored.
It's mirrored. Okay, there's that.
Well, it's on mirroring. We need to know, does it automatically switch or does it go over to an input or?
It should automatically switch. It should automatically switch from settings with the, are you plugged into the?
Yeah, I just plugged it in again. Apologies. Switch it for some reason. I don't know why that's on.
There we go.
You turn mirroring off, it works. Okay.
That's interesting.
Alright, just slide it over here.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having us today. Just real quick, I don't want to spend a lot of time on our agency, but just wanted you to know that we have been in business for 30 years, and most of our folks have been on staff with us for 8 to 10 years, which is kind of like dog years in the agency world. And we're also very happy to be partnering with Andres, the Ramirez Group. We've done work with Andres with other accounts in Nevada and have really appreciated his expertise and the relationship that we have. So happy to be here and very happy to be working with SSHIX. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our goals and objectives. We plan on approaching the account with various forms of marketing. So we plan on using paid media, which is obviously paid advertisements which run on air. Our plan is to obtain 90% reach of those folks that we're wanting to talk to and have them actually hear or see the message 6.5 times. The industry level is 3 frequency. We strive for 6 or above. We also plan on incorporating earned media. So that's news stations covering SSHIX and any other media, earned media placements. We intend on having at least 30 of those. And then we also will include social media, which I won't get into right now because I'll let Nick talk about that a little bit further. So again, paid media, earned media, public relations, social media, and also outreach. And I know you're all familiar with outreach that the Ramirez Group has been so good at doing throughout the community. As far as coverage of the state, we intend on making sure that Southern Nevada is about 80% and Northern Nevada 20%. This is a little bit of a crazy chart to understand. What we did was we looked at counties and zip codes. I'm just going to see what our next chart is to see if I had that other one. But the counties that we propose to target are Esmeralda, Clark, Nye, Churchill, Lyon, Washoe, and Carson. And let me talk about that a little bit more. We've looked at a lot of different research as far as how to determine those counties. And so what we've done is we've looked at the 200% federal poverty level measurement, and then zip codes that have either a typical age distribution or a large percentage of children and teens, young professionals 25 to 34, and mid-career adults 35-44, with income levels low income 25 to 50,000, mid-income 50,000 to 75,000, with a population of 20,000 or higher. And then lastly, what we did was we went back and looked at enrollment levels and included only those zip codes that had at least 51 enrollees or more. And Mr. Gold, I wanted you to know that we heard you loud and clear also, and that we are very flexible as a marketing firm and want you to know that we will work with you to make any changes that are necessary. That's really one thing about the philosophy of our agency, is that we don't believe that you just put it out there and then watch it. We believe it's all about a conversation, and that there's a lot of fluidness that's required to really perfect the message. And so just want you to know loud and clear that we truly believe we are your working partner, and we want to target those audiences that we all agree upon. This is a marketing plan that's just really difficult to read, so I apologize. It's really the reason that I wanted to show it to you is it's just broken up on how we spend our money. your money, I should say, our money, professional services, production, and then media placement, and then outreach, also PR and social media. We'll get into the actual media placements a little bit later in the presentation, but as you can see, our start dates, I'll go back up here, our start dates are mid-October for paid media. And with that, I'm going to hand this over to Melissa, who's in Carson City, and she can walk you through our media strategy.
Thank you, Chris. For the record, I'm Melissa Dietz. I am the media planner with Penna Powers. Brian Haynes. Sorry.
Can we get you to speak up, please?
Oh, is it still not? The little light is on. Just closer to me. Okay. Sorry. There we go. Now I can hear it. Okay. So for the record, my name is Melissa Dietz. I'm with Penna Powers. I am the media planner. I'm actually based out of Reno. So now between Patty being in Las Vegas and me being up here, we have the state fully covered. With our media, what we did is as we developed our media plan, we focused on these primary target audiences as we started laying things out. Again, to Chris's note, to Mr. Gold, we're nimble. If we go back and reevaluate this and we need to make changes, we can certainly do that. But our primary targets, based on all the data that we collected, we're looking primarily at Hispanic eligible uninsureds. We will be targeting tribal and rural communities. We'll be looking at single mothers, families, those recently laid off, and millennials and invincibles. As our secondary target, we understand that we also need to go out and reach the business environment, so brokers, small business owners, and legislators. As Chris mentioned, our campaign will launch initially October 19th. So what we'll do is we'll start off with 4 flights. Primarily, the flights will run for the expanse of the campaign, but our primary run will be when we have television and radio on. We'll start for 3 weeks, then we'll take 2 weeks off, then we'll come back on for 2 weeks, take 2 weeks off. What that does is helps us to expand that budget and make that run a little bit longer. We feel that getting in there and having a 3-week start, you can kind of pop in, get that message out there, and then the market's not necessarily going to miss you if you step out for 2 weeks and then step back in. And it just helps us extend that budget. What we'll also do is we'll take a look at, while we've allocated the market for the 20% in the north and 80% in the south, we also go back and we take a look at the actual audiences and make sure that we are allocating the budget accordingly across all the media, and then also making sure that we are hitting the right demographic audiences and weighting all those things accordingly. Again, we'll go through and we'll do zip code targeting. We will use mass media to reach all of the masses. However, we have some strategies with our digital and our social media where we can go through and micro-target those zip codes that we find most needy, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then again, we're going to just continually optimize this as we go. We're not just going to pop in there and let it run for 4 months and go, okay, well, that's what happened. What we want to do is be able to step in and say, okay, we're seeing more activity in these zip codes, so let's start skewing a little bit over there and try to find those lookalikes and make sure that we really are reaching the people who need our services the most. With that, we should expect to reach about 90% of our audience, which is what our goal was. And then here, this slide is a little bit hard to read. But you can see, again, we go through and it's the 20/80 allocation, and then we go through and we allocate by the various media. So we have about 40% going to television, 17% to digital, 12%. I can't even read my own printout. The color's a little bit odd. So we break that up by various media, but we've got a pretty good media mix. And then we also have gone in and taken a look to make sure that we're allocating the money accordingly by audience, so that we're making sure that we are targeting the Hispanic audience. We're also going to target just general market. And then we've also set aside a good allocation for rural and tribal outreach or media. And then this last page, this is just a little cutout of the other budget that you guys saw that's a little bit easier to read because media gets dry. And so here we've just kind of listed out how we intend to allocate this budget. So you can see we've included Spanish language television, general market TV, radio placement, both Spanish and general market, and also digital radio, including like Pandora, which we are all pretty familiar with. And then we've also listed here the station considerations. So we haven't gone through the negotiation process with the stations yet, but in looking at our data, just raw as it is, we're looking at things like Telemundo and Univision and Galavision. We'll look at the broadcast networks. We have an idea of the radio stations that we want to work with, but really what it comes down to is the whole negotiation and making sure that they're on board as far as being partners and not just standing back and saying, hey, can we collect a check from you guys? We need them to come on. We need them to advocate for us. We want them to lend some of their credibility to help get our message out there. So in addition to the traditional TV and radio placement, we will also do digital placement, including retargeting, display advertising, search, video, native articles. Again, we'll go through the whole negotiation process, but we have a pretty good idea of where we would traditionally run these things, including search being on Google, Bing, and Yahoo. With our display ads, we're going to make sure that we target to under and uninsured individuals. And with our native articles, we'll have to go back and again evaluate that, but we'll be looking at the big ones like Las Vegas Review Journal, Las Vegas Sun, and RGJ. So, and then for the print, we'll be looking at the rural newspapers and then also seeing what we can do to reach our tribal audiences in that area. More likely than not, we'll end up working with the Nevada Press Association. It's just an efficient way for us to get all of these ads into these small rural publications. We're taking into consideration Spanish, Hispanic print in both the North and the South. And what I like about some of those publications is they're not just based in Reno or just in Las Vegas. We can actually get out into the rural areas to reach those rural audiences. And then with the outdoor placement, this is something where we'll go through and take a look at whether we do the big oversized bulletins or if we do the smaller little posters that you can get kind of a little bit deeper into those neighborhoods. I'm sorry. So with that, we can kind of get into the neighborhoods that we want to be in. They're great outdoor for mass exposure, but not the mass expense that really generally accompanies mass marketing. So, and last but not least, we will go ahead and use the information that we already have in the database to send out email blasts on a bi-monthly basis. Again, we're going to go back and we're going to make sure that the stations and all of our media partners are working with us as partners, and we will try on the paid media side to go ahead and incorporate or earn the earned media space so that we get some time there that we're not just going to just hand out checks and pay for every single thing. We're really going to try to negotiate and make sure it's a valuable asset to SSHIX. So that is what I have for the media part. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a question. I know that as I have reviewed this, that there is a considerable amount of information and targeting for a number of groups, including Hispanics and Native Americans, but there does not appear to be any target for African Americans, who also are poor, and some of whom are poor and uninsured. And I think that we need to include targeting for that group also in this media plan.
Dr. Jameson?
I was just wondering the thoughts on why you didn't include the African American.
I think that it's a matter sometimes of the amount of money that we have to spend, and so we'll look and chime in here, Melissa, if you want to add to this. That we'll look at the percentages and the costs and how many folks there are, but certainly we can go back and really take a hard look at that.
I guess, do you guys, did you find when you looked at the numbers that compared to the Hispanic population at 200% poverty and below, or 200, 250, et cetera, percentage-wise, comparatively speaking, in a generalization, because I might not have numbers at your fingertips, was it just that the Hispanic population was like 4 times that of African American? But even that being the case, that those smaller numbers, it's a great need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what were the proportions, or how was the thinking
Yeah, I am not able to give you a number on that, but I certainly can go back and look at it. We did even look at homes that are Spanish speaking and not. And there definitely were several zip codes that came up with that. So the Hispanic population definitely is higher.
Hey, Chris, I can actually address a little bit of that anyways, in that when we look at other audiences, they have a tendency to consume the similar general market media. So if we're running on ABC or NBC or CBS or the traditional radio stations, we still have that opportunity to reach them. We will still have that opportunity through outdoor. So we'll start that with our mass media. And then as if we see an uptick in, for example, African American responses, then what we can do is we can use our social media or our digital media to try to start micro-targeting those lookalikes.
There are also some primarily African American outlets in media outlets, including radio, in the Las Vegas area. So Dr. Jameson asked that you about if your comparison or review of the population to maybe at 150 or 200% of poverty, comparing Hispanic populations and African American populations, or if they showed that there was less, or how did those numbers compare? And I'm just wondering if you actually did that kind of an analysis.
We did take a look at that but I don't have the information at my fingertips. But it was a guideline in how we looked at how we moved with the media plan forward. We took that into consideration. We also took into consideration the Asian population. And again, it just kind of came back to let's go out to the mass market to start. But again, we can go back and take a look at that more closely. And if an African American station would make more sense, then we can certainly add that to our media mix.
Dr. Jameson?
Yeah, the first question, it's sort of related to this, where you have primary targets, Hispanic and tribal and single, and you put on the side there 40% plus. So you're saying that of the primary target markets, primary target in the marketplace, you think that it's 40% of it is Hispanics, if they're the largest portion, or you're planning to direct 40% of your resources there? I just wasn't quite sure what that 40% was.
In looking at our research, when we examined the Scarborough data and then also some third-party data that we received, the primary audience that we were looking for of the, bear with me here for 1 second, for adults 25 plus who were un or underinsured with the limited household income that we were reviewing, more than 40% of those were Hispanics. So, but the number varied. We had anywhere from 40% to 60%, so we just went with the 40 plus to make sure that we weren't overestimating. So, but in reality, we have about 48% of our budget allocated to Hispanic marketing. Again, once we start doing this, as we optimize, if we find that we've over allocated, we can always bring that back and reallocate that to general market.
I would ask if there was any thinking about a different approach for retaining the members that have signed up, are currently on the exchange, versus trying to capture the market that has not engaged with the exchange. And to that degree, kind of drilling down into why we didn't get them last year or the year before, and working that into the development so that we're not, if zip code 12345 has all the right income standards and is part of the target market, but they were very much engaged, are we going to spend the same amount of resources on that zip code as a zip code that has the same opportunity, but didn't have engagement in the past with the exchange?
Typically, we have looked at the zip codes that do well and are wanting to target those zip codes again, knowing that that is the right target in those particular zip codes. Also, Janelle, maybe you can address this a little bit as far as those that have signed up. Now, they're contacted again by SHIX, is that correct?
As far as re-enrollment, they are by the insurance carriers, and then the re-enrollment process will be much simpler than in the
Than it
past.
has been in the past.
Right.
Right, and this is Bruce Gilbert, for the record. Janelle is correct. For the most part, those that we are looking at to re-enroll, the carriers do reach out to them directly so that they can assure that their book of business remains essentially intact. So as far as re-enrollment effort, that's actually aided by the carriers as opposed to pushed by us. We talked about at one point whether there was a need for a bifurcated approach, that is, coming out on one hand for the people that we know and are already enrolled, and then sort of spending part of our time looking at new markets, if you will. And our assessment ultimately was that because of the assistance of the carriers on the re-enrollment side, and they're reaching out to retain their book of business, and I know Cliff's shaking his head at me, that we really didn't have to spend a lot of time on that, because there will be additional time and effort and investment spent by the carriers, and we're really looking to expand our market where our footprint currently is.
And Bruce, that's kind of my point. I wasn't hearing that in the presentation. It sounded like we were going to focus on the zip codes that we already had a lot of penetration, and it seems like we'd want to focus on those areas that are an opportunity for growth.
Yeah, I think you certainly make a very strong point. The key is what does the zip code actually look like? What are the demographics in that particular zip code? And the number of people that we have who have come aboard and are enrolled through the exchange for a particular zip code is only a portion of that story. The real question is, what else is there, if anything? Because we know that our message has been successful to this point in time in that zip code. Depending upon the actual population density there, and depending upon the demographics, that is, what it looks like with respect to the federal poverty level and some other things, that should be what guides us. It's not just that we signed up 500 people here, but maybe we signed up 500 people, but it's a zip code where there are 3,000 people living, and according to the information that we get, based upon their characteristics and their where they fit on the federal poverty level, that may still be very fertile ground for us.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. I just, if the zip code has been heavily penetrated, then that would be a different situation in my mind.
Right, and we use a lot of research data, and Melissa can speak to this, but we definitely can drill down into the zip code, like Bruce was saying, and look at the age, look at whether they have health insurance or if they don't, and what their income level is, what their age is, even the size of the family, how many children there are. So we can really look into those specific zip codes.
Right, other questions at this point?
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Nick to talk a little bit about both public relations and social media.
So for the record, my name is Nicholas Giacino. I'm the social media strategist at Penna Powers. I'm part of the public relations team in the Salt Lake office. My background, worked with a lot of large insurance carriers. I've worked with Aetna, United Healthcare, Emblem Health out of New York, SHOP initiatives. So I have a lot of experience working from the social realm and then as part of a public relations team. So our objective, we want to generate 30 earned media placements. And we do this by having a strategy that promotes enrollments, creates a sense of urgency, so driving them towards enrolling and being educated about it, lending credibility, and then as a final piece, promoting enrollment once again, really pushing that home. And we're able to achieve this by launching an approach with kickoff events that create awareness and encourage actions to enroll. Through our PR efforts and outreach, we maintain momentum by staying top of mind and through awareness. So by working with our media team and getting media placements with TV networks or even within the print, we really do, like Melissa said, make them work for the dollars, and we create partnerships where they really want to provide value and provide us with placements and opportunities to become a team and get us on air. We do that with a lot of other clients with a lot of success to the point of some clients say it's too much. This person's on the air. It's such great opportunities. So we're able to leverage those type of partnerships. We publicize the outreach. So as it says here, utilizing news advisories to secure event pre-publicity. So we're building up to that. And social media also supports that, letting people know online where these events will be held. And then, of course, we're informing the public of enrollment deadlines and then status reports for media pitches. So it's a very proactive approach. Like I said, we tie our media team with our public relations team, and then social media also ties in there. So you're leveraging paid and earned media to reach the masses in a very targeted approach and really maximizing the value of these partnerships on top of us pitching the earned media to the networks or to the reporters and everything of that nature. Does anyone have questions on the PR section? Social media, everyone's favorite. That's what I've heard. So social media rationale. One thing I've always said with social media is if you're not on there, people are still going to talk about you. And I would rather control the conversation and be able to put our information out there and cut through the misinformation, which is what happens on social media. We all know things can snowball very quickly. And with our approach, we are able to steer and manage this conversation. It provides us an opportunity to have a 24/7 focus group, so we can tie in with the call centers where if we're seeing a lot of chatter about a certain conversation, we can pass it along for maybe one of the new top 10 reasons someone's calling in. Or if someone's putting out misinformation, we can steer that conversation offline, directing them to the call center. So it's allowing us to control the environment. And it's going to position us as the thought leader in the marketplace. We want people to come to us online to really know when they should enroll, their opportunities to go to an event, brokers in their neighborhoods, just all the general information, really drive home the tax calculator in this situation as well. And what we developed here is a rollout strategy that eases us back into the social media space. It would be a 4-phase rollout based on zip codes enrollments. So to your point, zip codes that already have a higher engagement, we do want to target them first because they're more favorable to us, and we can test out the messaging and let them know that enrollment's coming up again, see how the engagement's going on there. We're getting a lot of naysayers, people of that nature. And then as we continue to roll that out, it would go into the other phases, so eventually reaching statewide. And the nice thing with social media, Melissa kind of brought into an earlier conversation, is we could target behaviorally. So if they're Spanish speaking, if they're speaking Spanish as their primary language, we can target on their age, how many children they have, if they live in an apartment, if they are African American, if they're Caucasian, if they're we can even target millennials, so we can really get down into the behaviors of these people and target them. And social media is also a great opportunity for us because depending on the demographics, there are people involved with different channels. So younger Hispanics and African Americans actually use some social media channels more than Caucasians. So this provides us an opportunity to have that touch point with them. So that's how we would roll this out in phases. We would start with Twitter first. Ease very in, it's in the media plan as far as the build out, but we'd ease it in, get the audience built up, engage with them, and then continue to roll it out and use the many advertising products to get people to go to the tax calculator or go to our events and even to promote our own public relations content that we have going out there. And we're also, on top of that, we'd have a custom listening dashboard set up and launched where we can actually monitor the whole healthcare conversation nationwide and in the state to see what people are talking about to better optimize our content and to make sure we're answering their questions, not just falling on a deaf ear, only talking about ourselves online. So as I mentioned, it would be Twitter, Facebook, and then we have YouTube to put out the great video content that we can create as far as testimonials, real experiences people are having, how-tos, things of that nature. Just from my own past experience with healthcare, if you control the conversation and you talk to them 365 days a year, kind of similar to how Medicare does, where you become part of their life, there's less of that anger. So if we're talking about like healthy lifestyle tips and enrolling, someone's going to look like an idiot if they're yelling at us on the healthy lifestyle tips. So we're able to navigate the maze with what we want to decide versus letting them push the snowball or a giant rock on us down the hill. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns on the social part of this?
Are there stats on social media penetration by age group?
Yes, there is. Right now, one of the largest groups driving social is the older population. My grandfather's one of those. He's very, very active on there. So it kind of goes with like the tail end. It's the younger people were first, and now the fastest population that's catching up to everyone else is seniors, but it's very high amongst millennials, of course, younger teenagers, the Gen Xers, so the parents, they're utilizing Facebook more. Facebook's the #1 channel. That's why we do recommend being on there, because you can hit all the demographics and audiences with different content. So we did a lot of research with that. And then also now we're able to start seeing data broken out by ethnicity as far as their activity on there, what they're looking at, what their interests are. So we can make sure content that's relevant to them, both through creative and through the actual written parts, reflect what they're looking for.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
In terms of social media, what was your process in choosing? I know Facebook is #1, that's easy. Twitter, why would you not try Instagram? I notice Instagram is really popular amongst a wide age range. And I'm not sure how it all works, but I noticed that Twitter and Facebook can be connected. So when you post on Facebook, it can automatically post on Twitter or vice versa. So would you not want to include maybe something like Instagram or something that is also very popular?
So our initial reaction, based on what you just said, is we went with the largest audiences, and then also based on advertising products, because you're starting so high with Facebook. Anything that doesn't offer a product has to be done all organic. So you may not be spending money on it, but you're spending time just to go here. And another development that is just starting to roll out literally this week is Instagram advertising. So like we said, we are very nimble. That is something I'm going to go back to our social media plan and retailer that in, because Facebook owning Instagram provides an opportunity to have awesome products tied in the back end for us. And now we can tie in this whole other layer. So we will actually reevaluate using Instagram, and probably will use it. But it was mainly because of the advertising products offered on these channels. These first 3 here all offer advertising opportunities. So we're able to promote our content. So it doesn't matter whether we have 5 followers or 5,000, we can pick the market we want to hit. Millennials 18 or 24 to 34 who are Hispanic, who are African American. We can do that with these based on their advertising products supporting the content.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, moving on to the fun part, the creative. I'll run you through some. I know that we're getting short on time, so we'll be quick here. On the creative messaging, with our research showing that the main barrier is that people feel like it's too expensive, that insurance is just absolutely not affordable, and that the credits and the subsidies are available for not for their specific circumstance. And so we really felt like the main message we want to get across is you can't afford not to be covered. I'll run you through some pieces to show you a couple of other things that we want to also encourage. So we've got a few television spots, 15-second spots. This way we can marry them and show different situations. This is a biker, got a mountain biker going through a trail, and then he crashes. And so you hear the announcer, we freeze frame on the crash. You hear the announcer, you can't afford not to be covered. And then with all the pieces, we want to include the enrollment date. And also we want to include a time tracker that shows how many days are left. So this example shows that 30 days are left to enroll. Here's another situation with a mother having a baby. When it comes down to it, you can't afford not to be covered. Find an affordable health plan based on your needs and income at Nevada Health Clinic. And then again, talking about how many days are left to enroll. This is just another situation where you've got a skateboarder, and the skateboarder has a crash. Again, you cannot afford not to be covered. And then we've got in-banner video. So you actually see a mountain biker. He's coming down the. So this is animated, I should say. So use your imagination. I know this looks static, but he's coming down the trail, and then he crashes. So it freezes on the crash scene. And then the information animates, and then you can actually click on the ad to get more information. Obviously, it would be mobile friendly. We want to reach people in every way that they now get their information.
Can you describe this mechanism a little bit better? I don't understand
Oh, this,
how
yeah.
or when.
Yeah, so a lot of people just use their phones now for getting information. They'll go to websites, and so you can actually see this ad on your phone. So it would display like, so we're trying to illustrate here is how it would actually look on a mobile phone.
It's similar to the way they're served on a desktop ad. So if you're on your regular computer, your desktop or laptop, you receive banner ads on the side potentially, or in the top. So this is called the leaderboard, and then you have your size over here. So a video will start playing, and then people can click and it'll take them right to this website. So we're able to do that because of all the same targeting that I mentioned with social, also on digital. So we drive traffic that way and can constantly optimize in those positions.
This might show my ignorance, but is this similar to if I buy something online, I forever see that ad every time I go to the newspaper
So that's
online, and
yeah,
it follows me everywhere?
Yeah, that's called retargeting. So this isn't necessarily showing retargeting, although that's something that we do like to use to remind people if they have been on the site, and if they didn't act, we do think that there's a lot of value there in retargeting to be in front of them again.
I would like to make a suggestion as I look at these pictures that you color them a bit so that they appear to be people of color, since you are targeting Hispanics and Native Americans, that most of the people in your pictures appear to be Caucasian. So you might want to look at that and see if you can. Certainly the boy who's falling off the bike and falling off the skateboard. So as you plan to appeal to groups of color, then you might want to just colorize those a bit.
Yeah, and the TV spot here, this is a Hispanic mother, but you might not be able to tell that.
You can't. I thought she was Hispanic, but I think that it would.
Yeah,
you
and
want to just.
And this is just spec creative, so when we actually go to produce the TV spot, we would definitely look at actors and actresses that definitely show ethnicity. I can't even talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Jameson?
On your advertisements, I think they're overall just terrific, getting the message across. But I'm just trying to clarify the message. So like on the biker, 10,000 uninsured cost. So I'm assuming this is, I've reviewed many hospital statistics, and they'll tell you like an average hospitalization for certain things are available, like if you have a diabetic coma, or if you have a heart attack or a pneumonia, or I imagine a trauma such as this. So you could come up with the 10,000. What I'm confused about as a consumer, if I was reading this and it says, but your insurance cost would have only been $250. Are they telling me that would have been my deductible co-payments and my monthly charge, or the yearly cost of that's the yearly cost of my policy? I mean, I just don't understand what we're showing.
Yeah, that is a good point. What we were trying to illustrate
Is it
there.
a monthly? What is that?
What we're
It
trying
doesn't mean anything to me.
What we're trying to illustrate is that if you didn't have insurance, and this again is just a concept, so it's not the actual number that would be used, but just to give you the idea is that if you had no insurance, out of pocket it could be $10,000, but if you had insurance to take care of that particular incident would be $250.
Right, but you get my point. It
Yeah,
doesn't really
so
mean anything.
you're right. We haven't worked in the
But
your
this an average person's policy in this age range that's riding a bike that's healthy and invincible, what their yearly policy isn't going to be $250. Their monthly premium probably won't be, because with tax rebate or other things, it might be less. So I'm just not sure what that number is.
Mhm.
Where did you get it?
Again, we would want to verify it, but again, our concept was that if you had no insurance, it would be 10, and to take care of that specific crash, go to the doctor, get your cast, whatnot, would be $250. So you're right, it wasn't including maybe your monthly
I mean, I
cost.
just don't know what the number means. I wouldn't want to have our entity, Silver State, have a misleading thing, because the call center could get a lot of calls that I want that $250 cost per accident. I mean, I just want to make sure we don't go down a path that's very confusing.
I think an easy fix would be just put the word copay there and you'd be fine. I mean, I think what you're trying to say is that it would be a copay. The $1,250, that's probably a deductible and some coinsurance. And maybe to clarify for those who have trouble, understanding that terminology, using the words copay or deductible, something of that nature tends to clarify that.
I think that it also depends on the plan they buy. So I think you'd have to write little things
Yeah,
that
and
say,
actually, but the creative's not up right now, but we have a little asterisk by the $250.
I was trying to figure out what it was.
You'll see that the asterisk, it's not on here at the bottom, but it would be on there to explain that a little bit further.
I think I actually have an asterisk online. I haven't. Yeah. But do you remember what it says? Like ad does not.
Yeah.
It's not like per month or out of pocket or.
All right, I think you understand the point there. My comment on this, and I don't mean to get into the weeds, but the accident and skateboard are so much alike. They seem repetitive, and so if we're going to spend our ad dollars to get a more diverse population, we need, something that happens to older folks and maybe family. I don't remember us focusing on maternity so much. I don't know how large that population is in that income bracket, but at a minimum, I would spread the dollars around the different demographics and not have ones that are such similar situations.
Yes, that's understood. Good feedback. We had the skateboarder. We were thinking as a kid, so that would pertain to families, but that's probably not a great illustration.
Doesn't really display the whole family. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay, and then real quickly, website. We just simply suggest adding a few elements to the website that then help it tie into the campaign. So not redesigning the website at all, but actually providing creative elements that could be incorporated to the existing website. Again, the 30 days to enroll, or 60 days, or 55 days, or whatever, to help with that sense of urgency with enrollment, and then having the dates very big and clear. And then the open enrollment gets started, get help, manage your plan going on. This is just another version. So what you could do is you could change out that hero image. So before we had the biker, we could have the Hispanic mom, we could have an older person, but it could just change out to be relevant to the different targets. And then again, yeah, yes. And then key dates, again, the emphasis on that. And then the pre-screening page to just adding a subsidy calculator, giving the user another tool to help motivate action. And then that green button, Get Covered, again, that's just a call to action to help increase responses and also to hopefully reduce abandoned rates so that they just don't go out of the website and go on. And then again, 30 days left to enroll. Again, just that time sensitive issue.
Can you talk a little bit about the Get Help? I think in the past we've kind of been able to narrow it down to zip code and where the navigators are and where the brokers are, that kind of information. Is that, well, maybe that's a question for exchange staff, what we can do there again.
Damon Haycock for the record. We will still employ a robust lookup tool on our website that it is able to look very similar to a Google map, where you'll be able to see push pins and hover over them, and you'll see the operating hours and do they accept appointments and the name and address and phone numbers of all types of in-person assisters that sign up through our website. So you'll be able to see that again this year. We found that to be very successful last year. It assists our Consumer Assistance Center in looking folks up and ensuring there's a randomness to the lead generation for navigators and brokers as well. But that process we intend to replicate unless told otherwise.
I think some of this history is helpful since we've got new members on the board. Explain what those other tools are that we can reuse.
No problem, Madam Chair. And the remainder of the Get Help also has contact information for Medicaid, for the Secretary of State's office, for registering to vote, as well as direct links and contact information for healthcare.gov. And so we present a plethora of information for individuals to seek assistance in the manner in which that they want to seek assistance. If they want to go through us, go through our Consumer Assistance Center, or go directly to those agencies that support us.
Okay, and then just real quickly, some direct mail pieces, again, tying into the existing campaign. What's the real cost of being insured? You see a mother, and then you can't afford to be insured. And again, there is the asterisk, but the little copy is missing here. But we would get that detail worked out. Direct marketing, direct door hangers. We would have Hispanic and English. This way we could blanket specific areas and specific targets. We could also be able to educate about upcoming outreach events using door hangers as well. And then I'm going to turn the time over to Andres to go over outreach.
Good afternoon. For the record, Andres Ramirez with Ramirez Group. And our agency, Ramirez Group, has partnered with Penna Powers so that we can do a collaborative approach to the marketing, advertising, and education and outreach that needs to happen to take this effort to the next level. In the previous enrollment periods, Ramirez Group has functioned as a navigator. And so in this enrollment period, we'll function as part of the marketing and outreach team. And there have been other navigators who've been designated for the process. We have maintained several of the licensed navigators that work for us that will be helping in this outreach effort, so that when we're staffing booths or we're out at events, we have certified, qualified people who can explain the process to the consumers and help them through that, where that wasn't always the case before. And then the other licensed navigators that we have are now working with other navigator entities who've been licensed, so that we can make sure that we kept as much institutional knowledge participating in the program as possible. So we're very excited to participate in this. Over the past couple of years, we've been able to build a good reputation with partner organizations, community organizations, Madam Lewis, including with the African American community. So we work very well with KCEP and the Urban Voice and the Urban Chamber and a variety of those groups that we've reached out to as well to ensure that when we're building our outreach plan, that we're including events that will reach that community and that they find it important. In the last open enrollment period, we participated in 5 Martin Luther King events during that week of the celebrations, and so we were very happy about that we made sure there wasn't a single major event during that time period that Nevada HealthLink didn't have a presence. And so we want to make sure that we continue that as we move forward. And so, what we're excited about is that, there is a much more collaborative strategic partnership between what's going on in doing outreach to the consumers that we need to and with the advertising side in the past. There's been coordination and collaboration in the past, but not as intrinsic as we're hoping to do so now. And so we're really excited about that. And we think that Ramirez Group's reputation and history in this process will give us a lot of leverage moving forward. So our current outreach plan, and again, as I mentioned before, we are very nimble and we are proposing a draft plan of what we feel based on our previous efforts we can reach. This is what we're proposing, but we're open to changes, adaptations, or suggestions. But we would like to reach a total of 100,000 people through our outreach events to communicate with them, and broken down between 20,000 individuals and then people who are families and through small businesses and other community-based partners. And what we want to do, what's unique about what we want to approach the situation this time is that our outreach officials will actually be doing our own pre-screening and evaluation of the consumer as we're meeting folks, so that we'll be collecting their data. So if I'm at an event later this month or in September when we have all these parades and festivals, rather than just giving out a giveaway or an emery board or the water bottles and stuff that we give to folks, and yes, it's great for branding, but we had been walking away from those events without much to get back. And so now we're going to be showing up to all our events with our tablets to make sure that we can gather that consumer's information so that we can then give back to SHIX and it can be distributed to enrollment professionals so that we know that, hey, Miss Janelle came, she said she was interested. We got her name, her age, her income, her zip code, and a phone number to follow up with her. So we know that she meets all the relevant criteria of what's likely to qualify for a QHP. We've taken a lot of the questions from the pre-screening tool so that we can go to a broker now and say, here is an individual, a lead with a high likelihood of qualifying for a QHP for you to be able to reach out to them. And so the effort is we want to get to the open enrollment period of November 1st and have several thousand new leads already generated so that our enrollment professionals and navigators can hit the ground running and we're not worried about just finding them during the process. So we want to build that ahead of time and start driving them, and that's what we want the emphasis of our outreach efforts to be during this process. I know we're short in time, so I'm gonna.
No, this is important.
This is important. This is very important. Yes. But it sounds like the outreach is going to sufficiently target the communities that need to be targeted.
Now, are you going to help with the outreach in Northern Nevada as well?
Yes, so we have an office in Northern Nevada, we have an office in Southern Nevada, and so we will be coordinating outreach efforts throughout the state.
Yeah, you have an excellent reputation, so glad you're on board.
Thank you.
And Andre, how did you come up with the 100,000?
For us, we have a goal of trying to identify at least 10,000 leads, and through our outreach efforts in general through other clients and projects, we know that in order to get about 10,000 leads, we need to talk to 100,000 people. And so that's what we built the plan on. In our previous 2 enrollment cycles, our reach effort has averaged about 100,000 for each one of those open enrollment periods.
What is the mechanism for the referrals to be distributed amongst the navigators and brokers that are out there?
So that's a process we still need to finalize. What we're looking at right now, SHIX has been talking, as was mentioned by Executive Director Bruce Gilbert, with the 3 major professional agencies who are managing those, and we're looking at collaborating with the broker agencies much more strategically. So we want to give to them and allow them to distribute with the partner agencies. Therefore, there's no opportunity for steering too much one direction or another direction. We just want to collect the data and be able to give them the opportunity to distribute themselves. And so there will be data that's given to brokers, and then obviously data that's given over to SHIX for the navigators for them to give the appropriate portion they feel they can handle.
And actually, if I can build on those remarks for just a moment, we've been working very closely with the leadership of NAHU, NAFA, and the Big I, recognizing that most of our enrollment is driven, in fact, by agents and brokers. It has not historically been driven by navigators, nor those who come on and enroll themselves. And accordingly, we've been trying to find a way to allow our navigators and of course Andres there to concentrate on education and outreach and get out into the community and help us identify those individuals that we can help. And then our expectation is that we will allow the professional associations to deal with the question of where leads go or what they do. That's not for us to decide. I don't want us being in the position where we're favoring some broker over another. And that's what led us to speak directly with the professional associations.
Has there been an increase in the number of brokers and agents that have been certified to work this business?
It's difficult to say because the certification process hasn't begun yet. The training materials through CMS have not yet been released, so we don't know what ultimately the numbers are going to look like.
Okay.
So we have been impressed in the past with your incredible outreach and the diversity and the entities that you connect with and the large number that you and your creativity in the past. And so I'm just wondering, your mind was just spinning on how to go forward with this new year and project that you're going to be doing with our new group. Is that you went out there, you connect, you're now cut down to a core staff before enrollment, and you want to try to prepare so when enrollment occurs, we have as much numbers for outreach as possible. So how many staff are you cut back to in the non-enrollment period? And have you sort of set out just a brief little, we're going to have this many, community activities and this many, have you gotten your mind a little plan yet to share?
Yes, so we plan on having we have right now 10 full-time outreach staff that we have kept as part of this project. They have been continuing to work the outreach plan because with many of these events, we have to book them now in order for us to be able to participate 3 to 4 months from now, whether that's reserving a booth or paying a fee or things of that nature. So even though open enrollment doesn't begin until November 1st, the outreach work, the planning, the logistics that go into that have to start months in advance. So with us, we have Janet Quintero from our team. She's been with us since the first open enrollment period. And she has been leading our outreach efforts to coordinate with our other team and contact these event organizers and organizations to find out what our opportunities are to participate and so forth. We have provided a draft list of events that we've looked up that we think could be beneficial to participate to SSHIX for them to review and say, hey, are there any events you definitely don't want to participate in, or would you like us to move forward with these? Right now we have a list of about 80 events statewide that we've identified as good potential opportunities for us to participate in. And internally we are confident that our staff can handle the amount of outreach events that we have to do so. And we also know that Rosa and the Navigator program are also going to be doing outreach events and providing their staff as well.
Very exciting. 80 on the books already.
Yes.
You'll probably double that before we get to enrollment.
If we're allowed.
All right, any other questions from the board members? Do you have more of the presentation or?
No.
Okay. Well, good. Then on behalf of the board, you're invited back every month.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gilbert, maybe at the next board meeting, we could also have an agenda item to focus on the Navigator work and the plan.
We'll be happy to do that.
All right. Let's move on to the next agenda item then, which is number 9, Xerox closeout and the data transition.
Yes, I'll take this one. For the record, Damon Haycock. And I brought to the board in June a report summarizing the closeout activities for Xerox. Operationally, that was the last time that Xerox and the exchange was going to be physically or visible to the public. Any other additional services were going to occur in the back end as we were awaiting the transfer of data. The decommissioning of the business operations solutions occurred on March 31st, and there was some extra hanging activities with 1095 corrections that led all the way up until June. So on June 25th, Xerox sent to us a hard drive filled with all plan year 2014 data. And of course, that data, as Bruce mentioned in his executive director's report, was uploaded to a server that we installed here at the exchange. On July 6th through the 10th, we invited Natoma up to train staff on the 2 applications that were built, those for research and assistance with DOI complaints, anything from effective dates of coverage to eligibility and potential refunds. And then also the other application for the exchange to continue to meet the requirements to correct 1095A forms, both now and in the future. Per the data retention requirements of the Affordable Care Act, the exchange must hold all data associated with the exchange for 10 years. And so until 2024, that server will sit in that server room unless we move. We ran into a small glitch, which is why it took us a little bit of time before we could give final acceptance. Xerox had maintained the credentials for submitting the IRS reports for those 1095A corrections, and we weren't able to get them for a week or so until they figured out that they needed to transfer them over, and then we were able to get that, which closed the loop on that process. We did some additional testing, and we were able to continue to work on some other issues we had with surfacing payment data, which is critical, of course, to our assistance with DOI in responding to those complaints and refunds. So on August 5th, we concluded all of our testing, and we provided Xerox with final acceptance of the data. And as Bruce mentioned in his earlier report, it's not perfect data. We didn't expect it to be perfect. We recognized that if we wanted it to be perfect, we would still be talking about Xerox for the next decade. And so we took the lesser of all evils and accepted the data as is so we could continue to move forward and actually assist consumers in 2015 for their issues in 2014. And since we've been able to accept that data, we've made large strides, and with the help of our Consumer Assistance Center, been able to help many Nevadans in this process, especially with their 1095A forms. So we're very pleased that this process is moving forward and that we have tested and validated our abilities to continue to provide this assistance. And that's basically it. This report, concludes all of our operational interaction with Xerox, and hopefully you won't have to hear too much more about them moving forward. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Haycock? Damon, I do have one. Do we need to retain Natoma, or is the maintenance of that database and the applications with the state staff, or how is that going to work going forward?
We have a 2-pronged approach to this. We will maintain this in-house with staff that are qualified and capable. Our IT officer, Nick Cranston, who's not here today, actually built all of the visual or the virtual machines and loaded the SQL server. And I won't get too much into techies, but he's skilled and he's capable of managing that process moving forward. However, we do like to hedge our bets, and Natoma is still capable of being a vendor with us. They work with Milliman, who we have a contract through the end of 2016. And as the process moves forward, if we determine we need additional assistance, we will come back to the board with recommendations that we continue that relationship beyond 2016 as well. But Natoma has promised to provide us any assistance that we need, and they've been very fair with their time and effort.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 10, which is discussion of possible action regarding dates, times, and agenda for future meetings. I mentioned a couple related to the Navigator program and continuous reporting on the marketing and outreach approach. Are there other items that the board members would like to suggest? Hearing none, we'll go on to public comments, and we'll start in Carson City this time. Are there any public comments in Carson City?
There are, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Elisa Cafretta with Nevada Advocates for Planned Parenthood Affiliates. And I don't want to sort of rehash any of the conversation about the marketing. I did have some concerns when I was looking through the presentation. So it's good to understand what level of we are in the process and that most of this is conceptual. I just wanted to flag two concerns that we had when it comes to the patients that we see in our 3 health centers are largely uninsured. And so we know from our experience in marketing to them that there's a few things we need to make sure we cover. One is sort of the central idea about this insurance. The key message you want to get is that you can afford health insurance through the exchange, but nowhere in any of the marketing do you actually directly say that to people. And because we are generally dealing with low information people who don't have experience with insurance, I think that has got to be a critical message that somehow needs to get worked into the creative and the messaging that you are looking at, particularly if you look at things like our patients, they would be interested in maternity coverage, but looking at that $1,200 price tag that you would pay, your copay or whatever it would be, that's a month or more of income to these folks. And so that doesn't look affordable. They would look at that ad and look away because it would not apply to them in their lives. And while I think the terms copay and coinsurance are clear to us, when I think about the people who come to our health centers, they're not clarifying terms. They're terms that would, again, sort of make them look away. The other thing, I've always been a big fan of the health insurance exchange. And so I hate to see a line in your marketing that would say something like, you can go to our website and even talk to a real person, as though that was some kind of extraordinary, rare thing that happened, some kind of freak occurrence. I think you want to portray the health insurance in a more positive light. That's just me. And then finally, we have been very active in terms of concern about the conflict of interest and making sure that the consumers are protected. So when I hear that you're going to be turning over the distribution of leads to agency associations, I would hope that there would be some oversight, reporting, some transparency in that process of how those leads do get distributed, because one of the reasons we spent so much time making sure conflict of interest would be addressed was just to make sure that there wasn't a conflict of interest in people making personal financial gains or corporate financial gains from something that has been generated, from leads that have been generated through taxpayers' dollars. So we would ask for some transparency in that process. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Caprari. Any other public comment in Carson City?
No.
All right, Henderson, Mr. Gold.
I'm violating my one public comment rule. Again, for the record, I am still Barry Gold, Director of Government Relations for AARP Nevada. As usual, I will agree with Ms. Cafferata on the messaging. I think a great message is HealthLink makes insurance affordable. I think that's an important one to a lot of people who are uninsured. They really kind of get that. I don't know how you'd use a graphic of someone having a heart attack. You talked about something old. I have been in this room and I've heard problems that we have had with people and their coverage. Heart attacks cost $500,000. So I think that's something that just to consider. And the other thing, I was so glad, I was listening to the marketing plan, and I was so glad when Mr. Ramirez used the word COB, or community organizations. And that's the community partners have really pushed this for years and years and years. And thank you so much for mentioning them in the plan and including them, because they are very important in getting what we need done. What I'm not sure is, you talked about posters and things like that. I don't know how many flyers AARP gave away for HealthLink, but you're going to need to print lots and lots of those and make sure they have them, whether it come through you or whether it come through you. We got them from both people last time. And I'd like to just add that social media you talked about. A lot of the community partners have a robust social media presence already, and reaching out to them beforehand, saying this is what we'd like to do, I think you get great cooperation from them and they'd like to help in that manner. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in Henderson? All right. Good meeting, and seeing none, I will call for adjournment. Thank you.